Now, ladies and gentlemen, after 50 some years, after 50 some years, bless you. Okay. All right. As I explained to you, we got to. We wish you could give us more time, and hopefully, after tonight, I'm going to do what I did with Bob, with Speaker Ben Card and Mike, all the rest of them. They had an opportunity to come in front of us once a year at least, and so now I'm telling the government that 30 or 45 days after the session, when he wants to talk to the folks, he can come right back and talk to us. Is that all right, y'all? Governor, we're going to have something we call fireside chat. Very briefly, and ask you to take some time, take your Q&A. Be mindful that your staff is mindful of us, kept things going, so we want to make sure we keep our word to them to get you out of here. The stated, I do understand. Let me just say to you, honest, but what, what, conversation, right, this vibe,
with Tom, everything like that. So my wife, who loves you too, and she want me to tell you she's at a low. So she comes up and she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to get dressed." And she looked at the schedule. She said, "But I thought you had radio today." I said, "I do." She said, "So why you putting a tie on?" I said, "Because I'm talking with LY, so I need to make sure I'm dressed. I don't care if it's a radio." I'm telling you, the respect and admiration that I have for not just your leadership, but your commitment to the, because that's hard. And I'm telling you, we see it all the time where you watch people who forget who it was to put them there in the first place and where their power actually comes from. And I so admire and respect just how you continue to lead, how you continue to love, how you continue to be a guide. I'm telling you, calling you a friend is a badge of honor that I wear, and I'm grateful for you always.
Governor, thank you. Well, the 2023 session is gone. And, sir, you had, in my opinion, a tremendous session. You had a legislative session where you put the agenda out to the state, state and state. And then you proceeded to work through the legislative process. And from the last I heard, 15 bills, 15. How does it feel, sir?
Feels good. Yeah, it feels but I'm thankful because also the really important thing that I think we had to do was show that Maryland could do big things again, because I feel like we forgot who we were, right? That we can actually do big things. And the second thing is that we can move in partnership. And so I am thankful for the fact that, we put together a very bold legislative agenda, but we were able to get it done in partnership. And I would say, even if I didn't know he was here, I got to give a shout out to our majority whip, Senator Antonio Hayes, because you want to talk about what action and impact looks like. Watch Senator Hayes in the halls. Watch the way he leads, and watch the way he never forgets that while he has a very big job and very big responsibility that really incorporates the entire state, the truth is this man is Baltimore through and through, and he fights for Baltimore like it's nobody's business. And so when we came in, we said, like, listen, we're just going to be moving at a different pace, everybody. And when we said that we are going to make the most aggressive bipartisan assault on child poverty that the state has ever seen, I said, if I said it, I meant it. And so we were able to get things passed, things like things like bills that have an enhanced earned income tax credit and making permanent the child tax credit. What those two bills did, what the Family Prosperity Act of 2023 did, essentially, it just lifted 34,000 children up a rung on the economic ladder in the stroke of a pen. When we passed things like the Fair Wage Act, which now Maryland has a $15 minimum wage, accelerating the $15 minimum wage, because gone should be the days when we have people who are working jobs, in some cases multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. Gone are the days where we're disincentivizing work. That bill alone, the Fair Wage Act, just lifted over 163,000 families up a rung on the economic ladder, literally the moment that it gets incorporated. That we were able to focus on things like how are we filling these massive vacancies that we're sitting inside of state government. Right now in state government, there are 10,000 vacancies in state government, 6,100 vacancies in the executive branch alone. So that means basic services are not being performed. And who is it impacting most? Us. So by being able to create a budget that, yes, is now, we put more towards public education and public education supports and public education accountability than any governor in the history of the state of Maryland, that we were able to focus on things like job retraining and job reskilling and trade programs and apprenticeship programs and historic measures in the state of Maryland. And now Maryland is now the first state in this country that offers a service year option to our high school graduates. So we weren't just able to literally go 10 for 10 on our bills. We were able to go 10 for 10 bipartisan, Democrat and Republican votes on all of our bills. And if we said it, we meant it. And so we're thankful for the fact that we're able to show that we're trying, and we're not just trying, we are moving at a different pace right now. When I say this is going to be Maryland's decade, it's going to be Maryland's decade. And we're unapologetic, and we are unabashed about it. And so we're thankful for the progress, and we know we're just getting started, y'all. We are just getting started.
Yes, sir. Been on the job 6 months. Would you say that easy, good, bad, ugly, or all good? 6 months. Assess yourself.
Listen, I would say all good. And I say all good because not only if you look at everything we've been talking about and campaigning on for 2 years, one thing that people can say, I tell people, you're going to get no surprises. We've been talking about these things for 2 years, about things we're going to get done. and we've been getting them done. Whether it's talking about how we're going to focus on everything from putting new resources and new supports when it comes to public safety in our communities and neighborhoods, and I can talk about that. Whether it's talking about education and making sure we're actually creating pathways for our children so that our children are being trained and taught how not just to be employees, but how to be employers. Whether we're talking about actually focusing on pathways for work, wages, and wealth, and that it's not just about jobs, it's about long-term generational wealth in our communities. Whether we're talking about housing and housing discrepancies and housing disparities, the thing is that I feel like we're building not just an extraordinary team. And by the way, this cabinet that we have built, this team that we have built, this is the baddest team in the country. And we've also shown something else, too. This is the most diverse cabinet in the history of the state of Maryland. Where right now, 53% of our cabinet are women. Around 60% of our cabinet are people of color. About a quarter of our cabinet is African American. But here's the thing. It's also the most competent and hard-charging cabinet that this state has ever seen. So you're showing that you can focus on diversity and not compromise excellence. So we're moving knowing that we're covered. We're protected. That God's got us. And we know that in this moment, that the type of intentionality that we're choosing to move at and the type of partnership that we're choosing to move at with the delegation, the City Hall, all the other jurisdictions around the state, that this is how, that these type of wins and this type of momentum is just the way that we expect for our state to be able to perform, and that we plan on being able to benefit all the people. That Leave No One Behind was not a slogan. Leave No One Behind is a governing philosophy. And that's how we decided to.
Oh. Now, I know that you're good, but I didn't know you could look on my paper to see my next question. Because I was going to use the statement, no left behind, because I've heard the president use it since you've done so, and others, and it has now become a driving force. But Governor, leaving no one behind. That to me is the question is going to be in another 3.5 years. Did he leave it?
And listen, I said it because I want that to be our benchmark. Because that's good governance. I don't understand how people can make policy decisions, particularly policy decisions with public dollars, when you know intentionally folks who are not going to benefit. That's not good governance, right? You cannot, this is not going to be a time where our state's going to pick and choose who the winners and the losers. We've been doing that for far too long. And it's lazy and it's disrespectful. And so when we're pulling together our policy, and that's the whole point of having big, broad teams, right? That's the point of saying everyone needs to have a seat. That's the point of saying everyone needs to make sure their voices are heard. Because at the end of the day, even if a person doesn't agree with the decision, at a bare minimum, I want them to say, but at least I feel heard. At least I was part of the process, right? But if you are making decisions and intentionally you are leaving people out of that decisions, then all we're doing, we're buying into the old false choices of politics that I said we're not going to condone, we're not going to give into in this time. You cannot say that you're having an inclusive conversation if people are intentionally being left out. And you can't say you're having an inclusive conversation if a good chunk of the population isn't even being thought about in that. That's got to be a lens in the way that you're looking at all of your policy. Who is this not covering? Who is this not touching? And how are we making sure that when we say leave no one behind, that actually becomes a metric for how we're gauging our success in the work that we're actually trying to do?
Right. Yes, sir. All right. I'm going to pause. As you told, this is In Conversation with LY podcast being carried on various mechanisms, and I want to let y'all know that we're so proud of this. I know Michael sitting there saying, "That's my television show." No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. That's my buddy. Or Mark C saying, "Don't forget me on Sundays. I got you." Or Myra's, no. Where's Miss Flowers? Oh, Miss Flowers said, "Don't forget me on WLB." So did I cover everybody that got a show so that I can move on? All right. Oh yes, no. I was just radio shows. Oh my goodness, that's right. Oh, that's nice to see you, Mister. Nice to see you, sir. Okay, great. Smart man. Okay, and you got a Caribbean festival coming up sometime soon, Doctor Summers. Isn't that right? Oh, oh my goodness. I done started something now. Y'all sit down. I gotta go. We gotta stay on schedule here. I'm gonna put my attorney on you in a minute. Lou and Garrett, you see what she's trying to do? Disrupt my show. Okay, let me get a few questions in, and we're on schedule. By the way, we're on schedule. Yes, we are. And Smith, please. And by the way, 90 seconds, no filibuster. Thank you very much.
Senator, I want to thank you first. No, a few seconds for everything that you do for us. And most of you know we have a program called Seniors Taking Action, and we air every Thursday, and we air from 11:30 to 1. We try to discuss some of the problems that seniors have encountered in the community. Just recently, on the 27th, the Tennessee governor to visit. Now, I know you inherit this problem, so I'm not blaming you for the problem. I went to a nursing home. I went to the nursing home. I went to see a vet. They told me I can't call the veteran's name because they say there'd be some problems that he would probably have in this senior place. This is a place that received government funds. When you walk into the door, it's 9133 Liberty Road. It's called healthcare. Governor, when you walk in the door, the first thing you smell is strong aroma. It made me so sick on my stomach, but I said I wanted to see the person because his family was there. And they say, well, we got to go to the second floor. When I looked at the place in the inside, the place was totally deplorable. You could see that there was no service being given to the people who were laying in the rooms. You could smell pee and all types of odor. Normally, somebody told me today, they said that usually the rules in nursing is to let you get at least to the first floor without smelling the odor. But when I opened that door, it was unbelievable. When I got to see him, there was a sign on the door. It stated the bathroom was working. So he said, all I want to do is get changed. The man had labored and feces and being wet. At that time, I was so disappointed that I couldn't do anything. But his two family members, which is two women, one of them went up to the front desk. When they got to the front desk, they asked for some assistance to at least just come back and change his garment. We waited at least, I would say, almost 40 minutes. No one came. So the two women decided that they would change his garment. I have never seen a man was so happy just to get clean. I ask you, you can. It's been too long. These places have been operating without anybody's supervision of looking for to change these conditions that we see now. People are lying in feces and water. I just don't know. I came back and I said, all the church groups that attend these places, I'm more sure they've been calling to try to get something. So I asked at this time, and I know we only have a few minutes. I just hope that you'll be able to answer some of the needs that people need. It's to clean up this healthcare system where our people are allowed to lay there dormantly in their own feces and water, no attendance. That place is filthy up there.
First, God bless you. And thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. And thank you for continuing to not just shed light, but shed truth. I want to make sure we're following up with you right after this, because we're going to take care of this, me on this ASAP. I'm going to tell you, I was inaugurated on January 8th. January 19th, our Secretary of Veterans Affairs, a gentleman named Tony Woods, who's a vet, called me up and he said, Governor, I'm sorry to burden you with your first day, but I need to tell you about something. Have you heard about what's going on at Charlotte Hall? Charlotte Hall is our largest hospital for vets, large nursing home for vets. As you know, Smitty, all the veterans nursing homes are on a 5-star rate. Charlotte Hall is 1 star. 1 star. And frankly, after hearing about the conditions that were going on in Charlotte Hall, I don't even know how they earned the 1 star. And so immediately on day one, we realized not just that we were walking into a crisis, but that, to your point, this wasn't just about Charlotte. We are talking about people, individuals, men and women, who have laid their life on the line. Who were being treated so horrific, and promises were being broken to them so defiant. And so I remember on that first day telling the secretary, who has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Secretary Woods is just, he is a star. He has been going out to veteran home to veteran home. I think the man has taken up residency in Charlotte. But where in our first days, we fired the provider. Put in new leadership team, and have made a promise to all of our veterans throughout that whether it was Charlotte Hall or any other place, you are going to find and you are going to live in a state that when we say thank you for your service, that needs to mean something than just a state. And so the thing, and you look at the way that we're approaching this right now, we really are very much approaching this from a whole of government approach, where you have Secretary Woods, who's working with Secretary Day, our head of Housing and Community Development. Our Secretary Herrera Scott is our health secretary. Secretary Lopez, who's our head of human services. So we are taking an entire government approach into the way that we address these type of issues and these type of challenges. In addition, putting record funding into this type of support, because stories like this, I cannot tell you enough. And it's not just because I'm a veteran, it's because I'm a human being. They make my blood boil. Our veterans deserve better. Frankly, all of our seniors deserve better, whether they were served or not. And I'm going to make sure we follow up afterwards, because I appreciate the fact you're right. We understand that there are challenges that we inherited. We get it, because there's just been a lack of basic responsiveness that we've seen throughout state government. But I want to be clear, that's not how we do business. And there are real accountability that we have for the way we're going to support those who've supported us for a very long. So we're going to be talking.
All right. Lena Redmond.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you again. Bless you. We had a hard fight, but we won. Well, my question is, my union, I know. My union, Workers United, we was the first union that came out and endorsed you. But my question is, representing Workers United, formerly Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union, our problem, not only my union, I can talk to Marietta English about the teachers, David McClure about the transit workers. Our issues are, when we file, our members file for workman's comp. Governor, it's a shame we have to fight to get it. My industry is competitive. There are sewers, there are textile workers, drivers, teachers. Not only do we have carpal tunnel, we have our workers have mental issues. Something needs to be changed about the way workman's comp is being done in Maryland. So I would appreciate you to look at that and see what you can do, because when we are here working every day, I mean, just working, but working for minimum wages, some of our members. And then you have a claim, you put the claim in, it's denied 2 and 3 and 4 times. You have to get an attorney, like my friend Lewin Garrett, to come in to work with us so that the people can get paid for the work they have done. Something needs to be done. David McClure had a fight with some of his workers, drivers, having carpal tunnel. My workers, Marietta English, the teachers fighting mental illness, depression. Something needs to be done, and I would like to hear we'd like to hear some solutions. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. And first, can we just pause? I just want to give you a shout out for all your hard work and your partnership, that all the work we were able to get done during session that we could not have gotten done without you. I mean, I am so grateful, because you are right. We had some fights, but I tell you what, coming out of that session, we had some wins. We had some real wins, and real wins about how we making sure that we are respecting our workers and our working families in a different type of way, right? How are we focusing on the fact that, and I'll diverge. I'm going to come back to this, but I'm going to diverge for a second. But when people talk about, this idea of saying, well, everything you're doing it's just expensive proposals and, all the trite talking points that people will make, right? Not considering the fact that there's no data to back up any of the arguments, right? Because if they actually look at the data, yes, we had an incredibly bold and ambitious agenda, to focus on things like supporting our workers, where we put in over $471 million in pay raises for our workers, because we continue to have people, whether they are textile workers, whether they are HVAC, whether they are educators, who continue to take on the burden of our society, and we continue to disrespect them in the way that they're being paid and the benefits that they have. So yes, we did have measurements and historic measurements of what it means to have pay increases and benefit and salary increases, and I'm not apologetic about it at all. That yes, we say when we have a teacher shortage, one of the bills that we passed was the Teacher Shortage Act of 2023, because we have a massive teacher shortage. And so yes, we do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we do. And it's about how exactly are you incentivizing the teachers that were there right now to stay, and how are you encouraging teachers who are not there to actually reduce regulatory red tape and make it so that you're making it easier for people to be able to enter into our workforce and keep high quality educators inside of our classrooms. And I'm not apologetic about that. And by the way, we can do all these things and still provide the people of the state of Maryland a $200 million tax cut. That we can actually do both. And so when it comes to things like workers' comp, and making sure that we're respecting our workers, we actually have, as we have a workers' comp platform right now, and a commission that's set forth about how we fixing a workers' comp platform. How are we making sure that our workers know that they are going to be supported, and that if it comes into a situation that it's whether either sickness, health issues, etc., supporting families, that they are going to be supported inside of that work and protected. And also goes on the back that, and again, I want to give a special shout out to Senator Antonio Hayes for all the work that he's been able to do around paid family leave and other worker support issues that's been going on for years that we're able to get across the finish line. But if you actually want to encourage work, and if you want to support workers, and if you want to create a better pipeline for people to enter into industries, take care of the people who are in the industry now. Because don't believe for a second that the people who are trying to recruit to new industries, they're paying attention to how we're treating the workers now. And they're making decisions based on that. And so I very much look at how we're dealing with everything from workers' comp or paid family leave, et cetera. I look at all these things as not just about how we're dealing with the now issue. It's how we're dealing with a future issue. How are we using it to strengthen pipelines? How are we using it to increase recruiter bases? And for people to know that if you are on the job and you're out there supporting our community and supporting our environment, and something happens and you happen to be injured, sick, taking care of families, whatever the case might be, that should not have to be something that's catastrophic to you or your family for generations to come. That's all we're saying. And so it's why, again, I stand proudly as an ally with doing this work. I'm thankful for what we've been able to get done thus far. And I know this is going to be a core part of what we're going to get done in this next stage, in this next era as well. And I'm thankful for it.
I've been buzzed. Clock's on me. Let me get these three in. All right, let's start with Mr. Gerald Stansbury.
How you doing? My question is very short, but an answer, I know you. Your answer's gonna be long. Well, look, real quickly, Governor, I'm sure you know the work of Congressman Pern J. Mitchell and Congressman Elijah Cummings. And my question is that, would you advocate as governor, along with other advocates that are working to try to get a memorial in Annapolis at the State House? What?
And I'll be brief. I'm sorry. I'll be brief. The answer is yes, but let me also say this is that at a time when we are watching our history under attack like we have not seen in generations, at a time when we have these so-called leaders who are telling us what we should read and what we shouldn't, what parts of our history are relevant and what parts are not, who are telling us that there's certain information that we should not be teaching because we're afraid of people feeling bad, that we're restricting what we're learning about because we don't want to ensure discomfort or guilt. The reality is we know that's not true. The reason that this assault on history is taking place is not because of discomfort or guilt. It's because they don't want you to understand your own power. Do you know why? Do you know why it's important for people to know about stories and names like Cummings and Mitchell and Marshall and Douglas and Tubman, B. Gaddy, Calloway, right? Do you know why it's important for people to learn about that? Do you know why it's important for people to learn about the transatlantic slave trade, but also why it's important for them to learn about the Stonewall riots and Japanese internment and the Holocaust? Do you know why it's important for people to know about this kind of stuff? It's because if you know your history, there's nothing you can't do. I walk every day with a humility, and I walk every day with a confidence that you can't shake me of. Because I know where I come from. I know whose shoulders I stand on. I know who's powered my walk. I know who has set my stage. I know who paid for my crown. You can't tell me about what I can and can't do because I know my history. And I know what people had to do and endure in order to do it. So, and I apologize. I know Senators like, listen, you're doing exactly what I told you not to do. So the short answer is yes. But we need to use this moment to not just fight for our history, but to push back against anyone who would try to deny it.
Here we go. Last two questions. Okay, that's the Vice President. Mr. Colton Douglas, quickly.
First of all, I want to thank everybody that listened to the Frank M. Conaway Ed L. show on Friday. Governor, I have a couple things I want to make you aware of, and then I have the ending question. First of all, you got a vital records that issues death certificate and birth certificate that is right now in complete disarray. It's taking us weeks to get these folks death certificates, and that is a major issue bringing in money for the state. It's $12 per copy. I've got 2 families right now want 25 copies. That's a lot of money. That needs to be looked at. The other thing is the burial of veterans. Right now, Garrison Forest needs more money to bury more veterans. We got 1,000 veterans a day dying. It used to be from World War II, but now it's at the Korean mark and the Vietnam War mark. Something seriously needs to be done about that. Thirdly, is the Baltimore City Social Services really need to be investigated because there are thousands of dollars owed to funeral homes in this city for burials they have already done, and they have not gotten paid in over a year. And some of us are to the point that we cannot accept that voucher any longer because we don't know if we're going to get paid. My final question to you is, this man right here walked in my name to be appointed to the Board of Morticians. However, there were people that were placed on that board that was less experienced and less qualified for me. So my question is, how do you decide about your appointments to boards? And are you also looking out that a lot of African Americans will be put on paid commissions? But the most important part I want to know is about how do you select who goes on your board? And I want to thank you, and please come on the show. And as Chief Financial Officer of the Arena Players, we want to thank you and the state for what you have done for us, and we hope you keep on doing.
Not yet. That thank you. He's thinking about it, Carl. He's thinking about it. I'm going to keep the memory. So, nevertheless, do you want to answer that? And one more question, then we got to close because the staff is jumping on me through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'd love to come on the show. Would love to come on the show. So that's one. The second piece, let me actually come to the statement, and then I'm gonna come back to the question. For the statement, what you just said has exactly been part of the problem with these vacancies. Part of the challenge we have when you have 10,000 vacancies in state government, and people say, well, why does that matter, or what's the big deal? Or when people try to balance a balance sheet off of it, when we talk about things like surpluses and this and that, which are not real numbers, those are all projections. But again, when it goes back to, you can't balance a balance sheet on people's backs. And so when you have 10,000 vacancies in state government, do you know what that means? People say, what does that mean? It means things like you have real work that isn't happening because there are not people in the seats. It means why we have such a high vacancy role when it comes to our parole and probation. When people say, well, what's going on in parole and probation? Why are so many people who are convicted of these violent crimes in violation of parole and probation? Well, it's a problem when we literally have hundreds of seats that are not being filled. What does it mean when you have vacancies in everything from nursing to education? These vacancies matter. And so when we say that we're prioritizing being able to build, and in many cases rebuild, state government, it has to start with making sure that you're actually getting people who are working the jobs and people who are filling the seats. Because you could put together the best plans in the world, if I do not have people to execute on them, what exactly do I have? And so I tell you on the boards and commissions. First, I have to tell you, I am so unbelievably proud of this appointments team. We have a woman who many of you actually in this room might know, serving as my secretary of appointments, a woman named Tisha Edwards. She is wonderful. She is wonderful. Yes. Yes, she does. I will. Yes, ma'am. I sure will. And let me tell you, so Secretary Edwards, I mean, she literally has a heart as big as this room. And I tell you one thing I'm proud of, she's got a heart for Baltimore. And having a Secretary of Appointments who is a true Baltimorean has been amazingly powerful. There are about 7,000 boards, commissions, seats that the Secretary of Appointments has to fill. If you look at what we call the green bag, what happens during a time of session when you're looking at your first appointment positions, historically, on average, there were about anywhere from 200 to 300 green bag appointments that are done. Our administration had 900. So we ended up filling more boards, commissions than any other administration. We're literally talking by 3x. By being able to put people in positions, and by the way, to your point, some of them which are paid positions, some of them are more volunteer positions. If you look at what we've been able to do of the brown bag appointments that we put in, on average, it's about 20% people of color were getting positions. In our administration, it was close to 70. If you look at what it was with men and women, over 50, or it was about 60% of brown bags were women. This is the most diverse appointment set that we've had. I'm a person go back and think about not just the morticians, but go back specifically with your case, and I want to follow up with you on it. But I have to tell you, I am so proud of Secretary Edwards and the work, and a Baltimorean, Secretary Edwards, and the work that's been done by the appointments department to making sure that all these appointments that we are pulling together, that we're making sure that all communities, individuals, and people are being seen and heard in all that. I'll follow up on this one individually, but I had to go on the record and say just what an amazing job this appointment specialist. Yes. And Secretary Edwards will tell you personally, this is something I have a very personal hand in as well. So, just like most things when I come.
Last question, Dr. Cheatham, quickly. No, don't tell them something. I did the best I could. Doc Cheatham, thank you very much. Come on, Doc.
First, we all look out. I want to document because it reminds you I was honored in office at R, and I told them I wanted to have on the 7th. Hard to come for pride. I shop and pay. And I said, Governor has not promised to help us. Governor, we're begging.
And I have to tell you, and first let me say, Doc, nobody's been fighting on this issue about food insecurity like Doc Cheatham. Nobody, and we are better off and grateful because of you. And I want to be clear, what you're talking about is a crisis. It's a crisis when you consider the fact that I mean, and literally that number is right. We're talking a good portion of our community is living in a food desert. We're talking where, if you look at just in Pigtown just lost its only market. That's right. So how exactly are we talking about giving people measurements of economic or academic supports and growth if they're not healthy? And so this has been a crucial issue that we have drilled in on, to include things like working with folks like San Antonio Hayes about the work that's taking place right now at West North Market and what's going to happen over there, which we are incredibly excited about. Working with our Secretary of HCD, Jake Day, who I know you've been working very, very closely with as well and been meeting with, about how exactly are we addressing and tackling the issue where right now you have tens of millions of dollars every single year that are going towards this issue in state government that is unaccountable. And so with working with Secretary Day, we've called for a full audit of all state dollars and resources that are going towards food insecurity, because we need to know where every single one of those dollars are going and why you have so many dollars that are now just unaccountable. Because the money has been earmarked in there, it's just not getting to the people. So the question becomes, who's the money going to? And how exactly can we increase the streamlining of the process so we do not have to deal with food deserts in our community and deserts in our society? And so if you look at the budget, our first budget, we did things like increase $10 million going towards food banks and working with homes of worship and churches to increase food security, because the people who are closest to the problems are the ones who are closest to the solutions. They're just hardly ever at the table, right? So if you look at our capital budget, we actually put money from the budget towards that. But what I also want to know is, what about the capital and the money that has already been slotted to go towards these areas that's not getting to the people? And that's where the accountability measures come from. That's where our increasing accountability measures from. And we're going to be working with Doc and working with many of y'all to be able to make that happen as well. So I apologize.
Family, remember, we need you for 30 minutes afterwards, but for right now. And he made a commitment once, at least a year after the session, few weeks after the session, he's going to return. Do we want to thank the governor of the state of Maryland?
And thank you. But before can I just say one thing? And actually, I'd love to talk to you about not just what happens after session, because it's not just reporting about what wins we got done. It's coming to you before and being able to say, this is how we're moving in this next session. And frankly saying, and this is where we're going to need your help. Because there's two things I would just very humbly ask. One is, as we are pushing together these agendas, I need everybody in this room to use their voice. I need everybody in this room to make sure that as we're trying to push together legislation and we're trying to get things done, that we are going to need people to call their legislators, for people to call City Hall, for people to say that this is the governor's agenda and we need to be able to enact it, and they will listen if you call. And so we're going to need your help on that. The second thing I would just very humbly ask, and I will be brief, but I'm sorry. The second thing I would very humbly ask for y'all is this. There are people right now who want to dismiss the hopes and the prospects of Baltimore because it benefits them financially or politically. There are people right now who want to tell us that Baltimore is a problem that needs to be solved. There are people who want to tell us every single day that we are nothing but a city in crisis. Now, we understand the work that needs to get done. And the thing is, I'm in a room of people who are doing the work, right? Who are out there in community, on corners, in schools, doing the work, under the bridges, doing the work. And the thing that I can promise you this, and there's more stuff we can go into in our next session, is when you look at the work that this administration is doing, y'all don't just have a friend and a fan and a partner, but you have someone who's putting real resources behind our words and real accountability behind our words. Where I say that this can be Maryland's decade, but it's going to be Maryland's decade because it's going to be Baltimore's time. But I want to be very clear about this. For all those people who claim to be champions of Baltimore, but who have nothing good to say about us. For all those people who will sell out our community for a check. For all those people who want to use platforms to make people scared of us, to make people not invest in us, to make people not believe in us. My ask is this: let's make liars out of all of them. I'm proud of the fact that I tell people, listen, I'm a very proud Baltimorean, and people are like, well, of course he's going to invest in Baltimore. Of course he's putting capital in Baltimore. Of course, because he's a Baltimorean. Of course he'd do that. I said, no, I don't do that because I'm a Baltimorean. I do that because I'm good at math. We are the state's largest city. We are a crown jewel. And we are going to invest in that way. We are going to believe in that way because Baltimore is not a problem that needs to be solved. It is a jewel that needs to be unearthed. That's our responsibility. That is our time. And I'm grateful to be your partner in order to get this work done. So thank you. Thank you.
The Governor of the State of Maryland, Wes Moore. Thank you much.